I gotta tell you before we get going. Rick's sitting over here this morning, and he says, "Hey, is Laura coming, the attorney?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He says, "I got this check. It's burning a hole in my pocket." He did a buyer yesterday, yesterday.
Well, you probably
$35,000
right?
payday one. Is that awesome?
Well, take it out. Show them. Show the camera. That's a real check. Nice 35K check. Yeah. Now that everybody knows that they complete all transactions with the highest integrity around here, no one's going to try to steal that check from you, right?
All right. Disclosure, because it's being recorded. Does that mean every deal you're going to do, you're going to get a $35,000 check? No. Thank you. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's why we went back to the original values and effort and behaviors. You guys got to follow suit in order to reach those goals. Cool. Well, welcome.
Thank you. This work? Yep.
There you go.
It does work.
It's great to be here.
Yeah.
I had a can I do a positive focus?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I had a life-changing event last night, courtesy of Kayla Beach at the surf club. The Blackened Salmon BLT. Thanks, Kayla. I'm telling you, the thing's awesome. I feel much different today.
Who's going to be at VIP night tonight? Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, we're going to have some good food then. All right, Brian, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us, who you are, what you did before you... I can't say what you did before you met us, and then we'll dive into your business, and Rick will do that for yours. Let's just so you guys get the layout, and then we'll talk about their business, what it is today, and then we'll open up for questions and stuff so you guys can
Yeah, this is the time. You guys want to get up to the mic when they get done, and we open that up.
Yeah, so I'm Brian O'Neill. For those who don't know me, have not heard my story, I was in corporate sales for 25 years.
What'd you sell?
Here it comes. You ready? You ready? I worked for the same company for 17 years selling elevators.
Yep. Does anybody know how his business was? It had ups and downs. You guys want to know why Brian's really good at real estate? Because he has a good elevator pitch.
Yeah. He may have told all of those a time or two.
Every Zoom call he says it, which is every week.
I had tried. I had been looking to get out of my job for probably the better part of a decade, maybe 10, 15 years. I had a high travel job. I was a high income earner, and I was traveling. I was on planes every other week. I was gone, and I have a young son. He's 11 now, and I had tried a variety of different things. I mean, you name it, I looked at it. Shiny object syndrome was my best friend. So whether it was, stocks and franchises, I mean, anything that came across my feed, I tested it out, right? And I never really fully committed to it. A lot of fear around failing, around leaving the job. I didn't have a lot of belief in myself. I knew I had something in me, I just didn't know what it was. And I got really kind of stuck in this cycle of being in my job because it was paying me well, it was paying the bills, and I just as my son started to get older, probably around the age of 5 or 6, he understood that I was gone. And I'm missing him grow up. I come back, he looks different, he's talking different, he's bigger, and it finally started to dawn on me, especially when he started voicing his opinion. Hey, Dad, I don't like when you leave the house. I'm scared to be here by myself with Mom. It's an uneasy feeling to hear your kids say that, coupled with the fact that I was already, upset with myself for not going after what I knew was inside of me, all fear-based. And I said this at QLS Live, my son ultimately gave me the courage to quit being afraid and to try. And I thanked him for that after QLS. I said, hey, man, I just want to let you know that you're the reason that I did this. So when I told him that, his eyes lit up. I mean, it was like the best thing he's ever heard. And it's important to do that for your kids. But he's my why, and so is my wife. So is my wife, too. Like, I was sick of being away and missing him. And that was kind of the breaking point for me. And I think we talk a lot about, Zach was mentioning, Chris is mentioning, this stuff that we're talking about, we make it simple, but it's not easy. And when you do this business, you have to have a reason not to quit. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. I've had multiple times where I've wanted to hang it up. And I always think about my kid. I'm never getting on a plane again. He's never going to say that to me again. He's never going to tell me that he's scared for me to leave. And then I push through. So when you're doing this business, you don't have to do what I do. You don't have to find my why, but you got to find a reason not to quit. It could be multiple reasons. And, you know.
Brian, can I jump in?
Yeah, of course.
I want to encourage them to, you said that like emphatically. And okay, so here's what I would encourage you guys to do now or later. It's 4, 5, 6, 7 words. I will never blank again, or I will always blank it. Write something down that you won't deviate from. Like he was passionate.
Yeah.
Like I will never freaking settle on blank or whatever it is for you. Would everybody do that today? Write that down. Yes. This would be yes. Yeah. Cool.
People just tell everyone.
You got to find that. So, you know, it's as I was dabbling in everything, you know, I looked like a real estate investor. I went on appointments. I met with agents. I looked at properties. I didn't really do anything. I was kind of faking it. And I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of fear about investing my own money, which I had. And then even bigger was asking other people to invest alongside of me. Right around that time where I'm hearing Chris on a podcast talking about how he bought his office building on owner financing with no money down, I ran right towards it. I think that timeline, Chris, between the podcasts was maybe a couple, 3 weeks. We talked on the phone. I came in November of 19. I was on the phone, Zach, within 2 weeks of signing up. December 16th, I made just 2019, I made my first dial. Got my first, and this is pre-COVID, right? And I was completely driven. I'm like, this is my way out of the W-2 job. I invested a significant amount of money. And I said, all of the tools are here. Like everything that I need is right here. And I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to fully commit. I'm going to put my head down. I work on the business every day with the exception of, a handful of vacations that I've gone on. I do something in the business or work on the business every single day. That's what it takes. You don't have to jump off a 100-foot building to do this. You just got to cross the line and keep going every single day. And you'll get to where you want to go and give yourself realistic expectations. Did my first deal in 71 days. Got my first sold in 120 days, and now I'm at.
What was your?
Let's do it.
Sorry, what was your first, your very first payday one, and then we'll do.
Yeah, first payday one. Give some context too. The elevator business was great. It was cracking, man. I probably sold over $100 million worth of elevators, if you can believe that, in my 17-year career. I collected a $6,000 check on my payday one. It was the most tremendous feeling in the world. It was the best deal I ever did. It's because I have proof of concept now. Like I can do this, right? And it just steamrolled from there. Like and I did it during COVID. I mean, we were passing the contracts in the parking lot because everything was closed. But I said, if I can get through this, I got this. I can do anything with the help and support of you and Chris and Zach and Nick and the entire community. But yeah, it was $6,000.
Pete, can we throw his paydays up there so we can see what his business looks like now? Yeah.
You got to add one to that. Just closed a sub-2 last week.
Okay, all right, tell us.
Yeah, we had a.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you.
He says it so nonchalantly now, but if you talked to Brian 2 years ago, man, try to make it happen.
Yeah. I've evolved. I've evolved because I've figured out what it is that I want. I did mostly lease options, sandwich leases for my first. I think it was eight or nine deals, and I started getting into. I wanted to own the house. I want to own the house. I want the deed. So I've been focusing on that. In the last few deals, I've picked up the deed, and they've been multiple six-figure deals.
Brian, quick comment for these guys. When you're thinking through or taking notes, I hope you are, possible questions.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of little nuggets here, like I used to do sandwiches, now I just want the deed, I want to own it. There's pros and cons there, so I'd be jotting stuff like that down to ask.
State-based, yep.
And we'll address that. and then we'll also have Q&A periods after break. So I just want to plant a couple seeds to get you guys thinking Q&A. I'd be jotting those down.
Brian, is that the most recent taken, 3/20/2023?
That is, yes.
Okay.
That was last Monday. Yeah.
Awesome. So we wanted to share with you guys these, not only the 3 paydays and what it looked like this is what Brian's projected deals are, right? So he's creating the deals, taking in some of the money, and then over time is now collecting. And then we also want to share with you guys timelines, because everyone's timeline is different too. When you look at things starting to align with Brian, yes, he got his first taken in 71 days. Amazing. We just recently, we're going to have somebody else speak. I think they got it within 30 days. We're going to talk about a deal here towards the end of the day. But then also just to see what these timelines look like. Everyone's timeline is going to be different. You're going to see Rick's is completely different. Completely different circumstances. Why don't we...
You want to do some Q&A while it's fresh? Actually, take a little pause on Brian stuff.
Yeah.
Questions for Brian on anything. It could
Right.
be his personal transition. It could be deals, anything you want. Just first name, where you're from, and fire away.
Yeah, you guys just go stay in the line. We'll get to them.
You guys, Brian coaches the high 6 with me. It's the only level it has, besides family, always that two coaches tag team it. Probably someone you want to pick his brain. You get the mic. Okay, fire away.
You think Brian's cool? Wait till we get to Rick.
That's right.
All right, my name is Brian. I'm from Austin, Texas. Brian, I was just curious, your transition from sandwich leases to subject to owner financing. Are the conversations changing at all? And can you dive into that a little bit and just let me know what those conversations, how they're different?
They are different. And look, I have nothing against a sandwich lease. Okay, just for my goals and for the goals of my business, and for just the types of transactions that I want to do long term, it made more sense for me. So I want to own the property. I get the benefits of ownership, and I have more control, and that's what I wanted. On some of the deals that I had done in the beginning, I didn't have as much control. You can. Nothing negative here. It's just this is what I had kind of morphed into, right? So yeah, the conversations look different. I don't talk about lease purchase anymore. I describe the process of buying their house, which is on seller financing if they have a loan in place, or if they don't, it's owner financing. So I just simply don't talk about it. It's not an option, and that's really simple. If you don't, this business is about keeping it as simple as possible with the sellers. Like, I spend most of my time talking to sellers, focusing on their situation. Where are you right now? Where are you trying to go? And then I focus on how I can take the house out of their life so that they can go there. That's it. We overcomplicate it as human beings, trying to talk too much and throw up all over them with all the stuff that we know. That's it. You go from here to there, take the house out of the way. You can do that. You can do a lot of deals in this community. I hope I answered your question, brother.
No, I'm glad you did, because in our immersion mastermind, so I run the monthly immersion masterminds. We'll talk about what those words mean if you haven't been a part of our community yet. But Brian, you asked that question specifically, which was, hey, I'm in Texas. I'm kind of struggling talking about sub twos because you're not going to do sandwich leases in Texas based upon their laws. So Brian, maybe you could speak to because I know you said it's different. Is it harder? Is it easier? Do you find it to be more complicated?
I find it to be easier. It's very simple. Okay, very simple. And I explain it to the seller as such. Hey, look, I'm gonna buy your house. This is how it works. All right. I'm gonna take over your payments. The loan's gonna stay in place. It's gonna stay in your name. You got to be okay with that. The deed's gonna transfer to me. I'm gonna own the house. I'm responsible for everything. I flip that as a positive. I own the house. If anything pops up, maintenance repairs, I own it. I got to take care of it. All right, the loan can stay in place for 2 years, 20 years. You got to be cool with it. That's the process. That's how the process works. Step number 2, if you have equity, we work out a plan for your equity. That's it. I don't say much more than that. I let them, come back at me with questions.
And I'm not a CPA, guys, but there's accounting advantages to owning, both how you're taxed on it and how you operate it. And we do have our personal and corporate CPA that is available to all the associates. You just call them, set up He does all your stuff for you. But if not, your CPA will love you if you do more of those ownerships, especially if you have income to offset.
Brian, is that helpful? Awesome. Anybody else get a nugget from that just brief, quick conversation? Yeah?
Good.
Okay. Let's go to Kyle.
Hey, up Kyle. I'm from Northern California, and going back to your numbers there of your take-ins to sold, you had 25 take-ins and 15 sold over time. With your experience, are you noticing that number going up? And if so, what is it that you're doing to make that number go up?
I had done some marginal take-ins, mostly AOs, and I was doing a lot of co-listing stuff, right? And especially during COVID, like I wasn't, we weren't really able to see the houses, so I was taking a lot of deals where the seller was co-marketing. Lost a lot of them, especially higher-end homes. Now, what happened was when I got rid of that, because I've taken a list of every house I've had under agreement. I write a story, right? What is the seller situation? What type of deal is it? And it'll tell you, okay, well, these are the houses that have worked. And then all the ones that I've sold, like there's a story, there's something in common. So once I got that dialed in, once I got to like the last 8 or 9 deals, like I sold all of them. I didn't have to give anything back because I knew what I was going after, and I went after that. I didn't waste time fooling with that other stuff.
You weren't patenting your numbers?
I wasn't. So I'm like, I'm almost 100% now. When I buy something, it's gonna sell.
By the way, Brian knows, he spit that out because he knows his metrics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there has not been a Sunday since he made his first dial in December of 20, right?
19.
Sorry, December of 19, where I did not, around 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, receive on Slack his weekly numbers in 3 items he wanted to discuss on this call. Every week. Here's my numbers from last week. Here's what I want to discuss this week. Here's my challenges. That's it. And that's how he's progressed like that.
Dedicated and committed. You, sir, you are up next.
Thank you. Josh Lavis from Detroit.
Hey, Josh.
My partners Chris and I joined about 2 months ago as High Six, so super excited to be here. I have a 2-part question. It's more about lead generation. First part is, W-2 employee here, corporate sales. How do you find the time to master doing the calls consistently? And then secondly, when you're on these dials, like with the perfect storm that you mentioned, how do you get past the sellers who want cash or the certainty of cash now instead of being open to a delayed cash sale or like a large down payment?
Okay, you might have to re-ask your second question because I'm getting older and my memory goes. But number one, I love that question, the time thing, because one of the biggest things I hear, and I stopped saying this, all right, because I realized it was an excuse. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. When you say that, when you hear people say I don't have time for that, this is what it means. That's not important to me. You're choosing to do something else, all right? So to answer your question, Josh, when I was flying in airplanes, we were talking out in the lobby.
Every other week, right?
Every other week, all right? What I chose to do in the airport was watch Netflix, goof off, like just hang out in the lounge. So when I wanted to get out of my job and my kid was telling me that he didn't want me to leave the house anymore, guess what I did? I chose not to do that anymore. I made time. I made different decisions. So I locked myself in the airport lounge room and I called sellers. When I got to the hotel, I called sellers. Mike McCready's, unfortunately, he's not here. He called sellers on his commute to and from his job. Okay? If it's important to you, you'll make the time to do it. So drop the I don't have time from your vocabulary forever, because all it means is it's not important to you. All right? We all have the same amount of time. Make better decisions.
Okay,
What was the second part?
I want Rick to chime in here as well. You guys, Rick's got a completely different way of approaching all this stuff as well, a different story, but I think it's important to get additional perspectives on that question.
On the time thing, right?
Because that is like one of the number one questions we get asked every single day, is how do I make more time for this? So go ahead, Rick.
So backdrop, how much are you working, for who, and how long you been doing that? And then that'll piece it together for Josh.
All right. So my background, I'm a defense contractor. I've been a defense contractor for a little over 30 years. And I got into this, connected with Zach and Chris and the coaches couple years ago, 2021, in May. And my reason was I was looking at all these years working and coming up on retirement, if you want to call it that. And they keep saying, well, we're going to move retirement up to like 70 or 75. And you get people working in grocery stores in their 80s. And I didn't see a path to be able to be comfortable for the rest of my life. So I started with wholesaling back in 2016. Not much success, if any. And it was just another job. And when I'm working a W-2, flipping was out of the question because there's just no time to do that. So I started my LLC in an attempt to do wholesaling, and I went through Anderson Business Advisors, and there was a webinar, and it was Chris and Zach. And watching that, I thought, you know, this is more along the lines of what it'll work for me. So having invested in other programs in the past, I tiptoed into it in 90-day jumpstart and working with Steve Murnick, and I quickly realized this is the real deal. And I realized they'll match effort for effort, and when they say that, they mean it. And Steve, in fact, went on my first appointment with me. It was two properties, which one of them we now have under contract. So yeah, it's been wonderful. And as far as the time question, I have about 50 people that report to me, and my schedule, I can schedule dials for 1 o'clock in the afternoon at lunchtime, and most times that gets interfered with. So I either have to move that time to another time during the day. Most of the time from 4 p.m. to 6:30 or so, I can make dials. It doesn't always work out that way, and sometimes I have to make the time up. But there is always time.
Here, one of the key behaviors we said we're going to hit on behaviors over the course of today and tomorrow, and VIP day. As you heard dials twice from these guys. The core behavior is getting on the phone with people and learning those communication skills. So that way, we're laying the foundation consistently.
And so I get the long-term picture too, Brian, real quick. Yesterday at the Coaches Day, you said something to the effect of, you did all the dials at first, and that was a lot, and now how many do you do? In the course of a week or day or whatever?
Yeah, I might make 10 or 15 a week. My VA is, you know, queuing up all the calls I got to do in some call number 2. So I come in to close the deals. I mean, that's the type of business you can develop. You know, if you give it time and you give it some realistic timeline.
Okay.
So part two.
Tier 2.
Part 2.
Yeah, so part 2, thank you guys. So basically it comes down to effort. So when we're on the phone, right, we're making dials, you know, pre-mentioned the perfect storm, which is great for us as investors. But how do we get past the sellers because of the perfect storm who want the certainty of cash now? I know every situation is different. This is a very, there's a lot of answers to this question, but how do we, if you guys have one piece of advice, how do we get those sellers past wanting the cash now or like a larger down payment? Or are those just ones you just move on, go to the next dial?
Both of you guys.
Rick. Have Rick.
With some excitement.
Yeah, bring it home, Rick.
Usually, I mean, first off, if they're looking for cash, it doesn't work so much with cash, but it can be done. It depends on what they want it for, and that's usually the first question. What do you really need it for? And I recently had one seller that she needed the cash to buy another house, but after talking with Chris, she didn't really need it right away because she was to move to Florida, and it was a second home for her. So moving to Florida in the market the way it is, she could rent for a couple of years. Now she is looking at it as an alternative, a plan B. But we have some times, like out of your payday 1, if they need some cash up front, you can do it with that. And there are other resources.
Yeah, so, but the key there, and then Brian will, I'm sure, bring this home, is to find out what the heck their story is. Yep. You gotta, and then solve for it. And in Rick's case, does every seller want cash now? Yeah.
And full price.
Every one of them does, and full price, and I kiddingly said it to him. I get that. You're like 99% of the people we buy from, but, and then Rick dove into it, and she could rent for 2 years. Perfect. So you can rent, let the market change, because it's probably going to change, and you can sell at the top now. You just get the best of both. So it just takes some digging, but I'd like to see what Brian says.
Yeah, you know, queued it up. Every seller wants that. Cash, selling 15 days, $50,000
commissions.
over asking. I mean,
Yeah.
it's every seller. I think one seller says, yeah, I want to sell an owner financing. In the thousands that I've talked to, one's done it.
On the first
right?
call.
Yeah, on the first call. So we talk a lot about this in the community, and this has probably been the greatest gift for me to get better on the phone. And I emulate my son. His favorite word is why. His favorite word is why. So whenever I talk to sellers, I'm just curious. Why do you need all cash? Why do you need the down payment? What are you doing with it? What are you gonna do with the money? And more importantly, what are you gonna do if you don't get it? There isn't a more powerful question, in my opinion, in my experience, you can ask a seller than what are you gonna do if you don't get the result that you just told me you wanted? A lot of them don't know. A lot of them haven't thought about that. Well, I don't know. They all think they're going to sell, as you said. Cash.
Well, Brian and Rick, why do you think investors are afraid to ask that question? Because I have an inclination, but I want to hear what you guys say. Why don't? Because you said it nonchalantly, but I would bet that some people are afraid.
Projecting. That they're afraid of what the answer might be. And I was the same way. Believe me, I didn't ask that question when I first got on the phone. I followed the script. Okay? And I don't follow scripts anymore. I know the scripts. I'm just trying to find out again. You're here. You're trying to go there. What's blocking you? That's it. That's all my. I have conversations with sellers. I don't talk about the numbers at all. I don't talk about price. Like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to get done? And what are you going to do if you don't get it done? And that determines where they go next. Okay, their motivation. That's all that matters. Math is secondary. Motivation is number one. We focus too much on the numbers. Sellers start throwing stuff out. I'm going to turn this to a script thing here, but you know, sellers are all throwing numbers at us. Make an offer, make an offer. I want this, I want this. Well, what are you trying to get done? What are you going to do if you don't get that? It's my whole conversation with any
There's a
seller.
good book out there. It's super small. Getting to Know, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah.
Like, that's when the conversation starts. Get them to say no first. Now they feel good. They've kind of drawn their line in the sand, and then you just say, okay. So why doesn't that work for you? So let's jump to Mallory, and then we'll hear from Rick.
Hi guys, I'm Mallory. I'm from Pennsylvania State College. Thank you again for having us. I'm really excited to be here. My biggest question is when you're doing a sandwich lease or even a subject to, the amount of risk that you take on in kind of the difference between signing the deal with the buyer and then finding a seller or finding a renter. Have you experienced any sort of level of having to hold that yourself without having somebody in place already who's going to take over those payments? And how do you combat that risk?
We make it subject to finding a buyer in most cases, unless you've got the money to do that. But yeah, so I mean, on every one of my deals, it was subject to finding a buyer. So there was no risk.
And it's worth, just for everybody's context, we'll do deals later, but Rick's deal that he had the check for was his fourth deal. He made all those contingent upon the buyer, Mallory, and all of those are over six figures, all three paydays. All of them. And he's working on his fifth that hopefully he'll get while he's here.
Yeah.
I'll give you the timeline in a minute, but I just wanted you to have context. You can do every deal like that. We did when we started.
Yep.
Now, when you have other paydays coming in, like a $35,000 check here and there, could you perhaps maybe negotiate on a deal that you saw a lot of equity in and you want to commit right away? Sure. But when you're brand new, there's no reason to expose yourself to that.
Thank you.
The silent but deadly. The quiet ones over here. Yep. Well, it's small payday, he says. All right. Let's look at Rick's paydays here.
That's for the four, yeah.
That's for the four deals you got.
Now,
Let's look at this timeline, though. That's
Okay.
what I want people to see. The amount of effort that Rick put in and could have quit multiple times. So talk about that. I mean,
Yeah.
it took you a while to get your first deal.
Yeah, it was the first take.
Microphone. Hey.
Okay, thanks.
If you're gonna start doing a bunch
So-
of deals, you gotta get used to being on stage.
So when I got in, it was April 2021, May 2021, because it will be 2 years. So it took me a while. I did the 90-day jumpstart, like I said, and upgrade to starter. Once I saw that this seems to be working, and a lot of it was getting my head right, so it's all mindset, feeling confident in myself, and of course with an engineering background, everything's got to be perfect.
No.
Yeah. Hey, engineers in here?
I'm opening the door here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you gotta speak with Rick.
Yeah.
Hey, the good news is we've had phenomenal success with engineers. Those of you that raised your hand.
Since the beginning of
Yeah,
this.
really. I just call you engineer brain a lot, but you'll do well.
So I upgraded to immersion 2022, 2021. Yeah, it was November 2021. And then, Chris, you called me while I was on vacation in April. Yeah, April of last year.
22.
Yep, 22. And asked me if, he said, I'm going to take 5 people to do nightly accountability with and basically run alongside. And I wasn't turning that down. And so I accepted Chris's, discussion or offer there, and started working with him. And within a couple months, I had my first taken. So, and to give you an idea of when you upgrade to high 6, or when you are high 6, you get an office visit. And I had a virtual assistant from the Philippines. She's really good, and she's been making a lot of my FSBO's expired calls. And we made a small tweak during our strategy session on the office visit, just changing, adding 3 more leads in the number of hours that she was doing it, and it totally transformed everything. So my first take-in was August, and that was $90,000 payday 1. And
You guys get the payday 1.
yeah,
Yeah,
His
$90,000.
first deal, 90 grand for payday 1.
yeah.
So,
And I got excited.
so tell us the time. So
I got excited, he said.
Yeah, how many? So when you first started, when you get your first taken, what was the time frame?
So it was 15 months.
15 months. Okay. So for somebody who's dedicated, right? Would anybody be willing to wait and work hard for 15 months to get 90K as a payday 1? How many would do that? Yeah. The reason why we say is because it's always going to be different. Brian, 71 days for $6 grand, right? Rick, 15 months for $90,000. It's as soon as things are in alignment is when things start to happen consistently. So that's why we're sharing you these stories. If we're up here to say everyone can get a deal in 30 days, we'd be bullshitting you, and that's not the case. But what we can do is promise that if you're dedicated and committed to this business, that you can see success long term.
Here's another thing, to Mallory's question, all 4 owner financing, I think.
First one was a lease purchase.
Okay.
The second 2 were sub 2, and one of them was a hybrid sub 2 owner finance. This last one, as we're hopefully closing on it tomorrow, is an owner finance, and the 5th one that's right behind it is an owner finance.
So the one he's closing tomorrow officially has been in the works with Laura, who might be here now. You guys can meet her. She does creative financing in 32 states.
So you're working on your 5th deal right now?
Yes, closing out on the 4th one. It's
From the
same
4th seller,
Yeah,
the referral.
yeah.
Love it. Okay, so well, let's make
And he
sure.
was working on it last night at dinner. He stepped out and got it done. I mean, that's the kind of guy Rick is. Like, he's dedicated.
So Rick, just so we get accurate numbers, then, so it'd be 5 deals. What's the projection on the 5th deal that you just got?
108,000 in total payday.
How many years? Just so they get context.
It's a 4-year.
4-year deal. The buyer signed up for how many though?
The buyer is going to be 2 year.
Yeah, so it could be 2 years, but we give ourselves the buffer, as some of you know, and if this is sparking questions, you should get up. Because no questions bad.
And on this 4th deal, I had a couple buyers that were well qualified that I had to turn away. And this property, the other property is 5 miles away. So they're going to be looking right at, I may not even have to put it on the market.
Nick's going to be coming up here a couple times, but one thing that I would encourage you to ask Nick when he's up here, because he is the master of the buyer side of this, and he and Rick hung out a lot, as did he and Brian. Especially at the beginning, Nick's going to be critical to you getting these deals sold.
What's interesting, and I want you guys to see this, is Rick's done 5 deals with projections over the course of the next, say, 5 to 10 years of $500,000. It's not, you don't got to go out there and do 1 million deals right now. Two totally different business models. Rick's looking to retire. Brian's building and scaling a real estate business. Two totally different visions. Tying back to the beginning. Completely different. Creating that alignment and making sure that you're increasing that fulfillment long term.
I can tell you, when I was making dials initially, I thought it was cool. I was doing 10 dials a day, talking to 10 sellers. And I remember talking to Brian, and Brian says, do you think you could bump that up a little bit to like maybe 15? So I said, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. Well, 15 turned into 20, 20 turned into 30, and all of a sudden things started happening.
Rick, you said to me something along the lines, I had X amount of buyer calls, I don't know what I'm going to do. Just because a lot of people say, how do you sell these then? How many buyer calls on whatever deal you can think of?
This one that I'm doing now, that's taken me the longest to sell, was I've got 500 inquiries. It just went over 500 buyer inquiries. And it was like,
Who knows why that's the case? Especially now, the market. The market's screaming for that help. When the rates doubled, they pushed, I don't know the number, but hundreds of thousands of buyers to the sidewalk that thought they could buy a house. Now they can.
Probably millions at this point.
Oh, it's a crazy number. I just don't want to misquote it. It's a crazy number.
I misquoted it for you. All right, let's, you good to open up for some questions?
Sure.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yep.
Maverick, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
By the
One
way,
sec.
Maverick is his real name, so if everybody could please call him that from now on. And Kim named him at his fly-in for his associate visit because he said how much he liked. I don't know how many times you watched a Tom Cruise movie. It was ridiculous.
Top Gun.
So Kim called him Maverick, and it lives.
Great.
How many times did you watch him?
I lost count. I can tell you this. I have the script though,
Okay, recite the line.
and I'm working on the
Is it on a
second. I'm working on the
spreadsheet?
second one now.
We digressed. All right, let's go with some questions.
My name's Robert, and I'm from Dallas, Texas area. And kind of like Brian, we're locked into the subject twos in Texas. So when you do a subject two, you set 4 years, whatever, to pay out their equity, or how do you structure that?
The sub 2 does not have a term on it.
Right, but
you
if
do
they
it-
have
equity?
equity in the
if there is
property,
equity, yes, you do the only. It's a hybrid,
Okay.
and you can do whatever term is the seller's comfortable with.
okay.
You know, mine happened to be 4 years.
Any interest in payments?
No interest, principal only.
Balloon payment in 4 years.
Balloon payment in 4
That's
years.
one way.
Yeah, placeholder, 0 interest, 0 payments, balloon due. You could structure it as a second mortgage and have an amortization schedule.
Yeah.
You could basically treat that section as any owner finance, right? But then, so some of the deals, and we'll probably pull up some Rick and Brian deals here throughout the course of this event as well, and very likely in VIP day as well, because we got plenty of time VIP day and quarter, including some strategy sessions that we're going to do. But we'll share with you, like, we could share you some techniques on how to actually get rid of that second, and then be able to just hold on that sub 2 for as long as you want, and that'll create as a long-term owner finance deal.
Do you have any, Brian, with that? Was yours a hybrid or no?
The second to last one I did was a hybrid where he had equity, and we paid him. I'm paying him quarterly, a whopping $1,200 a year.
$1,200 a year, principal only?
Principal only.
On
yeah.
the equity piece of the sub 2.
On his equity, which is about.
Okay, so there's two different
yeah,
ways.
yeah,
Awesome. How did you come up with the 1,200? Just so everybody knows, was it just to get your cash flow a certain way, or?
yeah. He wanted monthly, and I said, look, that's a pain in the butt. So let's just do it quarterly, and that's $300 a quarter.
Wow.
So I mean, it's a joke. So it's just easier from especially using NAT processing with Nathan to process it 4 times a year. So
Yeah, highly recommend you go see Nate and talk about NAP processing. We don't have time just yet, but we'll get him here soon. What do we got? Let's go Rusty and then over to Brian.
Yeah, so we talked about, you talked about core behaviors, Zach, a little bit, and dials.
Oh no!
Come on!
Rookie.
Whose phone's that?
Who's the rook over here? All right.
One more phone, you got to stand on the table and sing happy birthday to Rusty, which happens to be this week on April 3rd, just so everybody knows that.
That's
Go ahead,
right.
Rusty.
Yeah.
So Zach, you talked about core behaviors. I think we're going to touch upon it maybe later. You talked about dials. This is for Maverick. Mindset-wise, that's one of our core behaviors. What flipped the switch for you as far as the mindset? Going from, oh, I'm just going to do a couple deals to now running a business, right? What was the mindset on that?
And some would quit. So if you could build in why you didn't quit, right?
Yeah, why I didn't quit was my why. I mean, what other choice do I have? You know, I don't want to be 60, 70 years old working in a grocery store. Or 70, 80 years old. I'm already over 60. not at the grocery store yet. But my mindset, I was working with Dr. Amanda, and she did the mindset coaching, and she's wonderful. But she totally changed how I think about things and my beliefs, my core values. And it was just the confidence, building up the confidence in myself. So for me to call somebody that's a $2 million home, I have no problem doing that now. I did. You know, I'm thinking, well, they're no better than anybody else. You know, they have a bigger house. Maybe they bought it for $300,000. It's appreciated over the years.
Bigger headache.
Yeah, bigger headache. So, in fact, some of those people are easier to talk to. Yeah, my mindset shifted totally, and once my mindset was on track, the sellers can pick it up in your tone when you're talking to them. And I don't have a problem with talking to sellers. Not anymore.
Can I piggyback to mindset, both of you guys? When you feel like quitting, because we all said in the coaches meeting yesterday, every one of them I think said, yeah, I feel like quitting. Every one of them, because they're human, and Zach and I too. So, what do you guys do when you feel like that? Was it the community? Was it an outside document? Like, just talk about that a little bit, because exposure matters a whole bunch.
I've had multiple discussions with Zach when I've wanted to cash it in. And, you know, that's the beauty of being around people who are going through the same thing with you, right? If you want to be a real estate investor, don't ask the people you work with, by the way, okay? So I remember calling up Zach a couple times, like, hey, man, I don't know, I'm not so sure about this anymore. And then he shared his story. Hey, I've thought about quitting too.
Yeah.
You know,
If you
It's
haven't thought
normal.
about quitting, you're not trying hard enough. I promise you.
Every month.
It's normal.
Yeah, every month.
You know, you've thought about quitting your job probably, but you don't. That's why I said in the beginning, you got to have a reason not to quit, because it's going to come up. It's going to come up. It's going to come up more than once. So focus on that. Take time with it. You don't need to know it today. You don't need to walk out of here and know it today, but you got to get to that point, because it's going to happen.
So you did 1-800-CALL Zach.
A 1-800 call
yours.
Zach, yeah.
What about you?
It's an actual number.
Mine's 1-800-CALL Chris.
All right, you guys both gave the answer you think we wanted you to. I really want to know, like, what else did you do mentally?
Yeah, I mean, I just always go back to what my son said, or what
Why?
I say to my son.
Yeah.
Like, he's never saying that to me again. He's never saying that to me again. And he's not, you know, and I write it down. You know, it's present in my mind, because again, there's some stuff that'll happen to you. You know, I was talking to you the other day about a property. Like, man, I don't want to do this. And I just think about it. Well, you get over it. So you just handle it different, but you got to have that. You got to have that thing that keeps you going.
Okay, that made me think of this, and then we'll go over here. You guys both have called freaking out before. Both of you have. Me or
Freaking
Zach.
out, man.
So, how are you different now? Because you are both different now, and 2 years from now, we could say this again. But how is that? How did that transition, and why?
For me, control the controllables. I can't do anything about what they did, what happened. I can only control what I can control. I control how I react to the situation, and I've been through some stuff. I've been through some stuff before I became a real estate investor. You get through it, right? You focus on what's right in front of you, you get through it. You have no problems if you're focused right here, right now. Like, there's no problems with anybody in this room if you're focused on what you're looking at right now, right? We project way out in the future. We live in the past. Like, all this stuff's gonna happen. Focus on your feet. That's been
Rick?
the biggest lesson for me.
Yeah, I think mine was a few times leaving a message, and every night I leave Chris a message, and I hear back from him first thing in the morning. And it was like, oh, this seller's gone dark on me. Why aren't they signing the P&S? I mean, that happens all the time. And he just said, Rick, your timeline is not their timeline. And once I got that into my head, my first deal, and I mentioned the first deal that Steve went on the appointment with me, we looked at the 2 properties. From the time that we looked at the property, the first contact to my having it taken under contract was 435 days. And the seller went dark on me. The other property he went with somebody else, and I just pretty much had written him off. And then out of the blue, I think it was November, he calls me, he said, Rick, I want to do something on this other property. And now, because I was able to move that one, he's giving the other one to me. So that there's about a 90% done deal on that one.
I promise you guys, the reason I asked that is I promise you guys when you have a curveball, because you will, every month, if not every week, you will. You're building a business. I promise you somewhere here in the community, in the High Six, and the chairmans, in our family, we've been through something similar or exactly the same. So somebody will call us, me and Zach and Nick will be in the office and be like, oh yeah, like we've done it like 17 and a half times, but they think, you guys all think, oh, this is earth shattering. No, it happens all the time. You just got to understand that and be around like-minded people who are going through the exact same thing.
There's that quote that says, don't sweat the small stuff. Then the second thing is everything small stuff. So it's just, we having a conversation with Brian. Brian was dealing with a challenging buyer. And Chris was like, yeah, Brian is going through this challenge. And I was like, yeah. Like, it's just, fortunately, unfortunately, you just get used to it. It's just part of the business. You just deal with challenges. Just be an entrepreneur. I mean, just think about it. It's every day is a challenge. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to look at those as challenges and not as detriments or things that are negative. Once you relive them.
Poor guy's been standing there. We forgot to.
Well, this is what I want to say. This is why Brian's already done 9 deals and cold called me like 3 times and sent me 4 emails to get an internship. We don't even offer an intern program. Internship, and now has had his 3rd question today. That's why he's done 9 deals at 18.
I agree.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Zach. I appreciate it. But Brian Russo from Sutton here. Sutton, Massachusetts. I was curious about your guys' marketing campaigns and what has been most effective. It seems as though you're mainly dialing cold calling, but I'm not sure. More importantly, what has been effective, but going forward, what do you plan to do? Whether it's the same thing at higher volume or like PPC, agent referrals, or anything indulging into different, marketing campaigns.
You guys answer. We're also going to have Damon Remy coming up here soon with REI Black Book, and he's very passionate about everything you just said. That's why we brought him here. Yeah, he'll be up here within the next hour.
So 2 of my deals actually came from the same seller were because of my wholesaling. I had done SEO, the search engine optimization, and my website, if you search on Sell My House Fast or Cash for Houses or whatever, which we don't do anymore, in New Hampshire, it comes up right near the top on Google on the first page. Out of the blue, somebody called me and said, I need to sell my property. So I got 2 deals out of that one. So I mean, that's SEO is costly. You just got to be prepared for it. But if you look at what I got in return for the deals, then it paid for itself. The other ones were all buy plus leads as a lead source, and those are FSBOs and expireds, canceled listings. And I also do niche list calling. Your conversion rate is much lower on niche lists because those houses weren't for sale. But
Niched, he's saying, so yeah. I was just going to compliment Rick and say if he exhausts a lead source or needs more in a given month, he'll say, I'm just going to try this list. And this list could be out-of-state owners, free and clear, low equity. We'll give you other ideas as we go along here. But the variety is the key word.
Right.
Not relying on one thing.
I spend most of my time with expireds, Brian. I love expireds because there's motivation. Now we do call another list, but all of my deals have been people actively trying to sell expireds, FSBOs. I talk about this in the community a lot. right? I want everybody to understand this and write this down, because we were talking about this in the coaches' day yesterday about the importance of follow-up. Seller puts a house up for sale. He's either going to sell it, or she is going to sell it to you or to somebody else. Okay? So obviously I want that to be, I want to be him, the buyer, but I'm going to be there the whole way until that seller tells me to stop calling me or I sold the house. So it's going to be me or somebody else. And you're not going to get them on the first call. You might. It's happened one time to me where I got a seller on call number 1. All right, the deals come in the follow-up. That's where the money is. Like, I learned this from sales. A lot of people don't understand, so you're not in sales. I worked deals for 10 years before they were ready to buy. Now, I'm not saying you have to work a deal for 10 years, but you have to give yourself a realistic timeline. You got to stay with them, because there's a statistic out there, and I might be misinterpreting it, but the people who might get to like the second or third touch, they're going to quit. So simply by you staying there and getting to the 5th, 6th, 7th touch, you're in such a better position to win, and that seller's going to remember you. Oh yeah, that guy Brian, he called me like 15 times. I'm ready to sell. That thing you were talking about, I'm ready for that now. Follow-up is everything.
Yeah, stick around. You guys are going to enjoy Dave in a minute.
Well,
in a minute.
Zach, you weren't there yesterday. So out of the coaches' call, this is how passionate they are. We came up with a bunch of action items, but one is Brian and Steve Murdoch here in the front are going to do a detailed module on follow-up, and they're going to add it to QLS, and they're going to train on it starting next week in the mastermind. Like, this is how fast we try to go into action as the market changes, and we hear in the community, oh, Jesus, they need that. Boom, let's nail it. So you gotta hang out. You gotta hang out with us.
We got. Looks like we got a countdown here, 4 minutes. So go ahead, Jose.
Jose Ayala from West Virginia. I had covered the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia market. And so my question to Brian and to Rick, too, it seems like you're really setting the pace and setting the standard for us to go forward. By showing your stats this morning, very impressive. Rick, what do you foresee in the next 2 to 4 years for you? We know that you're in the next 50 or so days, you're going to be cashing it in from your W-2.
We didn't announce that. May 19th, guys, he's leaving.
Yeah!
Good reminder, Jose.
Okay, but
he's going to start flying planes.
Right. What do you foresee then in the next 2 or 3 years in the company on setting the standard already? How can you pass that knowledge on to this community?
Well, I got to do this mic thing, yeah. We had a chairman's club meeting with Dan Ralphs. We had 2 days with him, and we did just that, and going out and looking at 3 years down the road. My business, looking at the numbers we took the average paydays and took a lot of stuff into consideration. 3 years from now, my vision is to be about $2.2 million, and that's not a stretch, and doing 40 some odd deals, and that's with increasing, scaling my business, adding a couple more VAs, an executive assistant, a seller, and a buyer specialist.
The word chairman's come up like 5 times. It just, we'll hear about it more on VIP day, but it's a private group. It's an invite only. There's 5 of them in it. They're right here.
Right.
Come up with, we'll talk to you more about that Friday.
Okay, and Brian, for the same for you, what do you foresee in the next 2 to 3 years for you in growing your business?
I love your question about setting the pace, or your statement, because I just want everybody in this room to understand something. I said this in Coach's Day yesterday. Like, there's nothing special about me. There's nothing special about Rick. Y'all got it in you. It's in there. Okay? The difference is that I'm doing stuff daily. Rick is doing stuff daily. And we don't give up, right? We have realistic timelines. But to answer your question, Jose, so you just have to believe in yourself. It's the belief. It's the belief that you can do it. That's the separator. You do not have to jump off 100-story buildings to do something. You just got to take the step, the next step after that. Jose, I'm trying to build my real estate business. You know, I've been at this for a little over 3.5 years. I'm just now learning how to be a business owner. Just now, right? And as we talked yesterday, Chris, that I'm the bottleneck. Like, the business is moving forward because of me. I got to get the hell out of it. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm building the team. I'm empowering my team members to run the business so that I can get out. I got other stuff I want to do. And the business will move forward as a result of that. And guys like Zach and Chris have been teaching me how to